They thought they had you trapped. Whole time you were the dungeon master. Desire becomes surrender. Surrender becomes power. So I cannot get that saying from Suicide Squad out of my head. So I'm going to go ahead and use that to help me relay this dream because I just think it fits so perfectly, right? So this dream kind of goes in two different directions, right? So there's this divine being in this dream, right? And there is some sort of let's just say like evil entity, some sort of like, I don't even want to say like demonic because not all demonic energies are evil. Like, whether you choose to believe that or not, right? But there's just something like this evil energy, right? I don't even want to say dark because not everything dark is evil either. Not everything of light is good. It's all relevant. So I'm just going to say evil, right? And it was in the shape of a teddy bear, like almost like, I want to say like, what's that movie, with like the girl who like the imaginary bear wanted to be her friend or got mad because she was no longer its friend, whatever movie that was about like the giant evil teddy bear or whatever, right? It almost gave like that kind of feel, right? Not that kind of feel as in like what happened in the movie, but like the way that this entity looked, right? And it was like this entity was not even after this divine being. That's the craziest thing about this. So like, of course, this goes without saying, like, don't, as divine beings, you know what I mean? There's like this innate feeling that you feel like you have to help others. You have to heal others, right? You have to be this beacon of light for others. And that's okay. Because for some of you, especially if you're a healer, it's actually a part of your divine mission, right? But with that being said, you can't do so much for others to the point where it becomes like a detriment to self, right? Like it goes without saying this, how does the saying go? Like, you can't help anyone who doesn't want to help themselves. Like you cannot go out here and try to save and rescue people who are doing absolutely nothing to save themselves. And here's the thing. This entity was not even after this divine being. Like this entity literally had no beef, no quarrel, no nothing with this divine being. But this divine being took it upon themselves to fight this entity in order to save two people. So one of the two individuals was a friend, right? Like an old friend. The other individual was actually a boss. It was somebody's boss, right? So it's giving that feel of like if this is like a sort of friendship, or for some reason, like I almost said relationship for some, right? But it didn't really give a whole relationship turn. But if this is like a friendship or anything where you are bonding with someone, it could even be like a coworker. This could even be a friend who's like a coworker, which I don't really too much. I mean, you might have that one person or those few people that you just click with on like a personal level. But I always caution people against making friends at work because it just... Look, you go to work to do your job, right? You should always have friends outside of work, right? But anyways, like it just gives the feel of like people watching you do all the work, or people literally watching you drowning or seeing you unhappy and having the ability to do something about it, but choosing not to, especially when it comes to like the boss and the work environment. Like this divine being literally is sitting here fighting this entity, right? And this is one of those entities where like, every time you fight and defeat it, it comes back stronger. You know what I mean? I want to say like a virus. Like when you eradicate a virus, what does it do? It mutates and it comes back even stronger, right? This is that kind of entity where every time this divine being defeats it, the thing comes back stronger, right? And it becomes harder and harder to fight. Now, it's one of those things where it's like we're stronger together. So what this divine being was meaning to do was to kind of like hold this entity off while the other two individuals did what they needed to do to heal themselves, get themselves together, and you all were supposed to go back and fight together so that you could completely rid of this thing, right? So you could get rid of it for good so that it wouldn't come back again. But like the heartbreaking thing is that this divine being is sitting here fighting. I mean, like I'm literally watching this divine being getting weaker and weaker and weaker as they're fighting. Meanwhile, your boss just walks off, right? And the other friend, the individual, is just sitting there watching. And the whole time, this divine being is like, okay, at some point, you guys need to jump in. And they're just like, oh, we're not ready yet. Or we're not ready yet. Meanwhile, they're just sitting there and they are watching you be depleted. And it was one of those things where I'm just like, divine being, just walk away, like walk away. Because the only reason why this thing is fighting you is because you keep attacking it, right? This thing was not even after you. And if these people are not going to get off their butts to do something to help you, which ultimately it's not even helping you, it's helping themselves, then let this entity do it. Because like a lot of times we don't really want to recognize that, like sometimes when these entities come down and when they're given permission to kind of rain havoc in people's lives, a lot of it is because one, these people have done something to where there's some kind of karmic debt that needs to be paid off, that there's some kind of wrong that needs to be right. And two, a lot of times these people actually have the ability to end this themselves, but they refuse to do the work. And that's how they get stuck in these cycles, right? So it's like you're sitting here and you're fighting this thing that's not even after you to save these people who not only won't do what they need to do for themselves, but who care even less about you because they're watching you sit here, get depleted. They're watching you run out of energy. They're watching you get tired and are not lifting a finger to help, and it's crazy. So it gets to the point where, and this is one of those things where, especially in spirituality, where they tell you it's important for you, like it's okay to help, right? But make sure that people are doing what they need to do for themselves before you jump in, right? You can't be everybody's savior, because here's the thing is like a lot of times you don't realize that when you just jump in, you actually are taking on other people's karmic debt. When you jump in and you decide that you're going to, especially when you're doing it all by yourself, when they're not lifting a finger to do anything, and when you're doing it all by yourself, it's almost like a spiritual exchange where you're showing the universe, hey, I'm going to fight this battle for this person. I'm going to take on this karmic debt for this person. So what ends up happening in this dream is that this entity is like, you know what? Forget them. Since you want to keep attacking me, now I'm after you. And it got to the point where now this energy is after this divine being. Now this war that this entity had with these other two people has now become your fight. You don't ever want to do that, right? Especially for people who are not there for you and who are not there for themselves. People who won't even do what they need to do to get themselves out of bad situations. You never want to be the person to take on their fight for them. So now this entity is solely going after this divine being. And meanwhile, it's growing stronger and stronger. And this divine being gets to the point where they get so physically exhausted that they need help. And of all people, y'all, when I tell y'all, children are so innocent, but they are the most, like, I really hate to see people mistreat children because they are the most beautiful spirits walking this earth. Would you guys believe that as this divine being gets to a point where they start running, and it's not because they're afraid, it's because this divine being needs a minute, because they've been fighting so hard for so long that they need a minute to rest, to regain their strength. So this divine being starts running, but it's not out of fear. It's so that they can have some time to rest and recuperate. And would you believe that the people that actually come to this divine being's aid and rescue are a group of children? And I say this jokingly, but like also like kind of serious, they were like some little badass kids too. Like they were little kids that for some reason were running around outside with weapons. I don't know why they had weapons. I don't know what game they were playing, but they were outside playing. They had weapons. They were running around. They see this divine being and they're like, hey, don't worry. We got it. We got it. And these kids with their weapons, these group of kids take off towards this entity so that they can fight and hold it off while this divine being gathers up their strength, right? It was like, it was one of those things, one of those moments where it's like so beautiful, but it's still so sad because like, just like the innocence of children, right? So beautiful. So this may even be someone, like if you are someone, and I'm just going to like focus more on like the job aspect, because when it comes to friendships, those can sometimes be a little bit harder to cut off. And even jobs for people can be hard to cut off, especially like in today's economy. I tell anyone, if you don't like your job, just make sure you have something else set up before you leave. Because I know too many people who have gone months to a year unemployed, because they left a job or some unfortunately were terminated, and it took that long to find something new, especially depending on like what your career field is. Like I know like since COVID, there's been a huge shortage when it comes to healthcare. So if you're in healthcare, probably not as dire for you as some of these people who were in like service, customer service, and tech industries, right? Healthcare and teaching, probably not as dire for you because there are plenty of openings for teachers, right? But this is giving me someone who, for like the career aspect, right? Someone who does not fit in at their job is probably being overworked, probably being taken advantage of, probably being mistreated. And I'm getting a lot of it that's being done is probably underhanded. Like it's not directly to your face kind of mistreatment. A lot of it I'm sensing is probably like underhanded things that are being done behind your back. People doing things or putting things on you that are probably not even a part of your, like one of those situations where maybe your supervisor is giving you tasks and assignments that actually they should be doing type thing, and you're not getting the credit or the pay for it. I'm getting someone who is like miserable at their job, but because of the economy, one, and probably also just because not wanting to have to start over, it's kind of just sticking with it. But Spirit is saying like, especially for some of y'all that just have like those really, I'm just going to say like raggedy type bosses. For a lot of y'all that are taking on roles and responsibilities that are not yours, for a lot of y'all whose bosses are taking advantage of you, just know that like spiritually, that is you taking on some of their dead weight, right? So just be careful in those kind of situations, because I'm getting this is probably someone who the career field that you're in is probably not for you to begin with, right? And I know like it happened to a lot of us, especially those of us that grew up in that era where we graduated high school and went straight off to college and kind of just pick something. It's like you go to school and you apply, you start school, and it's like that first day, it's like, oh, okay, well, pick your major, And I know some people, I actually know one person, a really good friend of mine, right, who I've been friends with since I met her in college, who she was a type where she was undecided until her junior year. And I thought that was so smart. So she did her sophomore and her freshman year, took all of her core classes, and then decided based off which of the classes she had the most interest in, waited into her junior year to pick her major. And I just thought that was so smart. But of course, like, not that you waste time, but you do kind of like waste a little bit of time, because, there are certain classes that you take in your sophomore and freshman years that are prerequisites for courses for you to take your junior, senior year. So it did end up taking her 5.5 years versus the traditional 4 to graduate, but she actually picked something that she was really interested in. Whereas a lot of us first day, we're like, oh, we're just going to pick this. And then you stick with it, and then you graduate, and then you come to find out like there was other things or other classes or other courses or other majors that interest you more. But once you put so much time and effort into one, a lot of people just tend to stick with it, right? So I know, like, I'll say like a lot of the people, even the people who are like coming into healthcare, a lot of the new graduates that we get are actually my age. They're in their mid to late 30s. Like, not all of the graduates that we're getting, that we're training, that are new hires, are all like early 20s coming fresh out of college. It's like a half and half, right? But a lot of them are actually in their some later 20s, but like a lot of them are in their mid to late 30s because they are going back to school later to be like, hey, I did this, I gave it a try. And I notice when I sit down and I talk to some of these people, like, hey, like, what made you decide to go back? A lot of them will be like, well, oh, I worked this job for like 10 plus years. Or, oh, I worked here for 10 plus years. Oh, I did this for however many years, and I just wasn't happy. And one of the common things that I see or that I hear people say is like, oh, well, I bounced around from job. Like, we all know that one person that can always find, it's like that one person who has had so many jobs, and people are like, wait a minute, like, how are you even still finding, like, your resume is so long. How are you still even finding jobs at this point, right? I remember this one guy who got hired for a supervisor when I first got into the career that I'm in. This guy that got hired for a supervisor, and they asked, so it was the manager, and we didn't have a supervisor at that time. So they asked the lead to go in and to help the manager with the interview. And then they asked me, and I didn't even know why, because I was like new into the field. I hadn't even been there a whole year yet. But I was like one of the go-tos because I was just, when it comes to like troubleshooting with certain things, I'm just naturally good at that, right? So they asked me to go and sit in. And I remember looking at this guy. He didn't even have a resume. He had a CV, which I've heard of those before, but I like never knew what it actually was. And because it was like long. And I was like, why is his resume like 4 pages long? And they were like, oh, it's not a resume, it's a CV. Because he's had so many different jobs, it's just better for him to do a CV because those are supposed to be longer. Because once your resume starts getting to like 2 pages, because like it, if you have a long resume, it's okay to do it like front and back just to keep it one sheet, because it's best to kind of like keep it condensed. But once you've had so many jobs that it gets longer than that, it's best to just switch over to a CV, right? Just to keep it professional. And he had a CV and he had all these different jobs. And my first thought of mine is like, why are you even showing this? Because it seems so inconsistent. And some of the jobs were like overlapping and people were like, what? I don't understand. Like, how are you here and here at the same time? And he didn't specify like his status. Like some jobs he was PRN. That's how he was working 2 jobs at the same time. And sometimes he would leave one job but stay PRN there while he went full time somewhere. It just looked a mess, right? But a lot of times what I'll see is like a lot of these people who tend to jump from job to job, it's because you don't feel fulfilled. And it's because you're not having, a lot of times we'll tend to trick ourselves and be like, oh, well, it's the environment. I didn't like the environment here. It was too toxic. And people who are spiritually sensitive, especially people who are like empaths and you're highly sensitive to the energies around you, that could be it too. But I think a lot of times that we don't pay attention to the fact that we are so unhappy with each job that we go to because it's not our calling. And it's not what we're meant to be doing. So no matter what job you go to, you get there and everything always starts off fine. But then within a matter of time, you find yourself looking for something else, wanting something else, desiring something new. So I think like for a lot of people, really need to do some soul searching. So for like everybody in their late 30s and up that is going back to school, like I congratulate you because it's not easy, especially when I tell people like, get it while you're young, right? Because when you get to a point where you have bills to pay and you have people, that are counting on you and you have responsibilities, it's hard to kind of find that time to go back while balancing having to maintain full-time employment because you have bills and responsibilities, right? So a lot of times people will go back part-time, which means what? Now it's going to take you twice as long to get that degree. But imagine how like determined you would have to be to do that. And just imagine how rewarding it's going to feel. So like with the whole boss aspect, I'm getting this is someone who is not satisfied with the career that they're in, right? that is not satisfied with where they work. And for some of y'all, spirit is telling you to leave. But make sure, like I said, because of the state that the economy is in, make sure you have your ducks lined in a row. Make sure you have something else lined up. But spirit, because for someone I'm getting, spirit is telling you need a job where you have more freedom anyways. Like that job is way too constricting for you. Especially if you're the type where you get to work and you're just staring at the clock from the moment you clock in to the moment you clock out, right? But spirit is saying that like that job, that place is not for you. And I'm getting like, if you're someone that every time you go to work, you get a headache. Because I've had a friend tell me that but this was her home environment where she's like, she does anything. She'll get up early. She'll go to the gym. She'll shower at the gym. She'll go to work. After work, she'll, go get go to a coffee shop, or she'll go out to eat. Like this friend said that she will literally do anything to keep from going home, because the minute she goes home, it's like she was like, I don't know if there's mold or something in my house or this and that. She's like, I'm not sure. It's only me. And I'm like, no, I said, and we started talking more, and it turns out like this is a very toxic individual that's at her house. But a lot of people like that are highly sensitive to the energies around them, if you go to work and you're like let's say you are perfectly fine when you get off, you're perfectly fine while you're at home, and like I'm not even talking like allergies, let's say you go outside and you're perfectly fine when you're outside, but all of a sudden you get to work and you have headaches, all of a sudden like you're having like sinus issues, all of a sudden you're like getting real, I'm getting like mucusy, right? All of the symptoms that people would be like, oh, it's probably just allergies, but you were just fine when you were outside. There's something about that work environment that is so toxic to your energy, it's making you physically sick. Like, I mean, someone whose work environment literally is so toxic, it is making you physically sick. You need to get out of that environment. And if you're someone who you feel like you've been in that career field for, I'm getting like 10 is the magic number. Like if you've been in your career field for 10 plus years and you still find yourself bouncing from job to job, it's not the hospitals, it's not the coworkers. That career field is not for you. And it doesn't sit right. It doesn't align with your soul urge, with your expression, right? Make sure you do your, not even just like your natal charts. Make sure you do your numerology charts too, to figure out what your life path number is, what your expression number is, and what your soul urge number is. And soul urge being the one that might point you towards more of a career that'll be more satisfying to you, right? But just make sure that you guys, because a lot of times these jobs, right, really will, because what do they say? Stress is a silent killer. A lot of the time, these jobs really are slowly killing us, right? So just make sure you're doing something that brings you happiness, that brings you joy, and that brings you a sense of purpose and a sense of fulfillment, right? Because a lot of times, like arguably so, we spend more time at work than we do at home with our own families and our own loved ones. So it's important that when you're putting that much time and effort into something, that it's something that you enjoy, right? But just make sure that you guys are not out here taking on other people's battles. Or more specifically, for someone I'm hearing, make sure you're not out here taking on other people's responsibilities, right? Because in doing so, you are making a spiritual exchange, and you are telling the universe that I am going to take on whatever karma, whatever lessons, whatever responsibilities, whatever, debt that this person has, I am agreeing to take that on. And do not set yourself back like that, because this is a divine being that I'm getting has already done the work. And I'm getting like, I've come so far and yet so, how does that song go? I tried so hard and yet so far. I don't know. However that song goes, I can't think of it at this moment. And then it's going to come to me later. I'm going to be mad, right? But anyways, this is like a divine being who you've already done the work, right? Not that like you're finished, because the work never really ends, because the more you evolve, the more there is to do, right? But this is someone who like has already done that base level work, and you're going backwards by taking on other people's karmas and debts and responsibilities. Spiritually, you're going backwards, and it's not your place to do that. So I know you want to save your friends. I know you want to save the people you care about, but Spirit is telling you, Do not try to save someone or heal someone who is not willing to do the work themselves. Okay, y'all, that is the message for today. This was another mini long one, but that's okay. I have like 2 more videos I need to record and then try to upload them all later on today if I can. But if you made it this far, as always, thank you for listening. Thank you to all my new subscribers. Okay, that's it for this message. Bye.